Juan Williams is an American and television journalist, commentator, and author. He worked for the Washington Post for 23 years as a White House correspondent and also wrote op-ed columns and editorials for the paper. Williams also worked for NPR, or National Public Radio, from 2000 to 2010, serving as the station's senior national correspondent and analysis.
On October 18, 2010, NPR radio host and Fox News commentator Juan Williams appeared on The O'Reilly Factor. This appearance would mark a turning point in Williams' career and put NPR in a serious predicament.
Juan Williams. So, Juan, I got to tell everybody, I got to own up to this, that that Talking Points memo is really written by Alan Combs. So where am I going wrong there, Juan?
Well, actually, I hate to say this to you because I don't want to get your ego going, but I think you're right. I think, look, political correctness can lead to some kind of paralysis where you don't address reality. I mean, look, Bill, I'm not a bigot. You know the kind of books I've written about the civil rights movement in this country. But when I get on a plane, I got to tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb, and I think, you know, they're identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried. I get nervous. Now, I remember also that when that Times Square bomber was at court, I think this is just last week, he said the war with Muslims, America's war with Muslims, is just beginning, first drop of blood. I don't think there's any way to get away from these facts, but I think there are people who want to somehow remind us all, as President Bush did after 9/11, it's not a war against Islam. President Bush went to a mosque.
Well, there isn't any theology involved in this at all from my perspective, Juan, but you live in the liberal precincts. Yeah, you actually work for NPR, okay?
Yes.
Just 2 days after Williams' statements on the show, NPR terminated his contract on the grounds that his statement was inconsistent with their editorial standards and practices. Well, what exactly are NPR standards and practices? According to NPR's ethics code, their employees must be unbiased, meaning that they separate their personal opinions, such as an individual's religious beliefs or political ideology, from the subject they are covering. They do not approach any coverage with overt or hidden agendas. NPR's code of ethics isn't the only code Williams violated. The Society of Professional Journalism has been around since 1909, stating that their purpose is improving and protecting journalism. The SPJ Code of Ethics is voluntarily embraced by thousands of journalists, regardless of place or platform. The codes ask that journalists avoid stereotyping by race, gender, age, religion, ethnicity, geography, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, or social status. Williams violates the code of ethics with the statement released on The O'Reilly Factor. Williams' statements resulted in his dismissal from NPR.
Another issue conjured up by the Juan Williams case is, should journalists who work for organizations striving to maintain imparity be allowed to appear on shows with a known political slant? NPR, as a news organization, strives to maintain imparity throughout its delivery of the news, but many conservatives argue the station is slightly biased towards the left wing because many of the journalists NPR employs, such as Juan Williams, have ties to the Democratic Party. The O'Reilly Factor is a show on Fox News that many claim to be very biased towards the right wing. The Fox News slogan is fair and balanced, but the equality of representation on Fox News comes into question when shows such as The O'Reilly Factor have a host who is very biased towards the right wing. To avoid situations where a journalist's imparity can be compromised, NPR should have not allowed Williams to participate on The O'Reilly Factor. As in the NPR Code of Ethics, it states, journalists working for NPR solely have their allegiance to NPR. A third issue raised by the Juan Williams case is, Is it ever right for a journalist to publicly voice or show support for his or her own opinion?
Breaking news from our world in media. Keith Olbermann of MSNBC has been suspended without pay. Olbermann has acknowledged donations of $2,400 each to Kentucky candidate Jack Conway, Democrat for Senate, and Arizona Congresspeople Raul Grisvalza and Gabrielle Giffords during this election cycle. Now, according to stories that are out there about Olbermann's suspension, it was not the donations themselves that got him suspended, but rather the fact that he did not obtain permission. NBC requires its employees to obtain permission and approval before making a donation. Apparently, Olbermann did not get that approval, and Keith Olbermann has been suspended indefinitely without pay from MSNBC. That story just developing.
November 5th, 2010. Keith Olbermann was suspended indefinitely and without pay from MSNBC after they had discovered he made campaign contributions to 3 Democratic candidates a month before. What's the problem here? According to its policy, NBC News prohibits its employees from working on or donating to political campaigns unless a special exception is granted by the news division president, effectively a ban. Olbermann's bosses did not find out about the donations until after they were made. However, the way things turned out, it seems that MSNBC was more worried about ratings than upholding any code of ethics. Olbermann returned to television on Tuesday, November 9th. He missed one show. One show. Olbermann made an interesting statement to the near 1.5 million viewers who watched his return. Had I known that all this would happen, I would have done this years ago. Olbermann showed an obvious bias, while Williams shared his personal opinions. Both actions violate the codes discussed before. Williams was fired, while Olbermann was quickly taken back with what seemed to be open arms. This shows what the two organizations really care about the most. NPR loves the news. MSNBC loves being the news.